So again, Learning Plan 12, because we're in the helping profession, a lot of the things that we have to deal with are not the niceties of our society, at least, whether it's probation, parole, law enforcement, sometimes it's nurses, you have to deal with rape kits and sexual assault victims, and then of course social workers and things like that. You're working with some people that have gone through some significant trauma. So Learning Plan 12 talks a little bit about what it's like to actually be coerced into sex, and sometimes you can be in a committed, happy relationship and be coerced into sex and not really even know it by power and an act of violence that you don't necessarily see. And then we're also going to talk about sexual violence and then sex for sale. So although I'd love to end our session and our time together on a very positive note, the way that this falls, it falls into the area of the lessons or the learning plans that make sense because you've already learned all of some of the beginning stages of this. So it's going to give you a lot of statistics. It's going to talk a lot about crimes and punishment and what rape really is, how many people are raped. It's pretty astounding. We're going to talk about what is a coercive behavior sexually. We're going to talk about the difference between consent, rape, assault. We're going to talk about what sexual abuse is, how that affects children, what it's like to be an adult survivor of that, and then how we actually treat people who do coerce or sexually molest or things like that. So it's a very interesting last learning plan, and at the end of the day, I always like to think this is an area that people need help, and we have an opportunity to learn all about it so that we can help them. So just think about that. So besides doing the discussion post for Learning Plan 12, which will, is a normal size discussion post, there's one major assignment due on the last day of class, and that's the final reflection on learning. And when you go to Learning Plan 12, you're going to see it's about 150 points. It literally is about a 30-year grade. So when you go to this last learning plan and you click on Final Reflection of Learning, which is at the end, you're going to see that it takes you actually back to week 1, which is a little weird, but that's just how it's developed. So again, the assessment or final reflection report that you're going to create, you can do it in a different format. So the first one you can do it as audio-visual, so you can do that, explaining what you're going to do. You will create an outline if you want to do this, but you do have to submit a final paper, and some people have done that in a presentation form, but I will tell you that it's pretty long if you do it in a presentation form, and you have to document it. Most students choose to do it as a writing. So there is an audio overview of this reflection paper. If you click on that, there's an outline on here as well, and then there's the actual submission. So just to kind of go through this particular assignment, I want you to be aware of a couple things. So your reflection has to be at least 4 pages, and that's including the reference page, and that doesn't, a line and a half to 2 line spacing, but it's a pretty big reflection about what you've learned this semester. So you're going to include an introduction that talks about what your reflection's about. You're going to talk about what you learned or the competency that you learned in your own words. You're going to talk about a realistic picture of the knowledge that you've gained. You're going to describe 2 to 4 examples of issues or new things that you learned from each competency. So if you go back to the syllabus and things, you're going to see the competencies. You have to describe 2 to 4 examples from each one of them. Haha! So that's like 3 pages right there. Then you're going to pose a question that you'd like to learn more about in each of those competencies. Like, oh, I remember us covering this, but it's always wondered why pedophilia would be like this, or how would we explore gender in cultures where there's no religion? I don't know, something like that. So that might be an area. Then you have to identify 3 to 5 examples of how you're going to use this material in your profession. And that's at the bottom. That's at the end of your reflection of learning. So after you've described 2 to 4 examples of each competency, things you've learned, how are you going to apply that? Tell me 3 to 5 things about how that's going to affect your work. And then one of the last kind of things about in the assignment is you have to identify some resources. So tell me 10 resources, specific websites that you searched out on your own that you can look at for 1, this type of content, 2, additional learning that you're going to need to look at as a professional once you graduate. And then the last thing that you're going to look at is I need you to create a conclusion that kind of brings this whole paper together. So it's pretty comprehensive. I've had it be as many as 12, 15 pages. I've had people submit it at 4. Whatever you need to do to explain to me, wow, this is what I learned. That's what this assignment's all about. If for some reason the Dropbox doesn't work for this assignment, as with all assignments, please submit via email attachment. And that is the assessment of the final reflection paper, as well as our last learning plan. I hope you've enjoyed your class. I hope you've enjoyed me a little bit, and any questions, as always, just ask.